Let's go. Probably one of my favorite transitions, to be honest with you. What's up, Paragon community? We are here with our community learning cast. I'm joined by Zeke Mateus, junior editor, and Edgar Diaz, my fellow community coordinator. And today we're going to be talking through one of our competitive matches for you today. The match we have for you today is Team Finesse versus Team Reborn. It is from this last weekend's PCL. And honestly, had a great time watching this game. I caught I know Ed was grinding away watching those games this weekend.
Right.
I caught the latter half of this game, and I was that's definitely excited to get into this game and dig into it. To be honest with
Absolutely.
you.
So this was PCL number 8 for
Yes.
North America.
That's right.
And this series was absolutely awesome. We're going ahead and we're bringing back the learning cast. We're going to go ahead and, for purposes of helping you guys not only level up your gameplay, talk about some, go in depth and dive into what are these competitive matches. I think there's a lot to take away from this series in particular, and this game that we're about to go through was pretty back and forth, pretty close.
Yep.
There's a lot of things to take from it, so we want to go ahead and talk over some things here.
Definitely expect more of these community learning casts to be popping up a little more consistently. In the past, you may have seen some with a period of time in between, like breaking up, us trying to really figure out the idea behind the cast and how we wanted to give the information best to you guys, or get the information to you guys from like the game or what topics to discuss. So definitely expect it more regularly. But without further ado, I think we can hop into draft or hop into the game.
That's right. We actually have a slate that we prepared that has the team lineup, so we can kind of talk through what we should expect to see from this game, what we hope to see, what we think might occur.
Yeah, so right before we hop into this, actually, I wanted to kind of touch on the fact that this is actually the first, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first competitive exhibition tournament that is played on V40. So all of the changes, all of the card changes, all of the hero changes. This is the first one where Revenant is able to be picked. So we are going to see, and he actually gets picked this game in a role that is not typically seen as, or where he's not typically played at least. It's pretty interesting, so we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second here. But I wanted to point those out. This is the very first tournament where we are going to be seeing the V40 stuff in action. Revenant is here. We had, can you guys think of any other big changes that came via 40?
Just a lot of technical stuff.
We had like
on
the opportunities with some of the cards we've changed and
objective
Sure.
things.
yeah, and it just I think the gold buff also, like, it is going to be another big thing to kind of talk about. Because
Absolutely.
that's
There's a number
definitely
of
changing
things.
the dynamic. So
Absolutely.
I think a lot of what we'll see is just adaptations and various teams' ability to understand this, like how those changes affected the meta of the game going into this weekend following 40.
Definitely.
That's right.
So without further ado, we can go ahead and take a look at the draft here, see who was picked. So in this final, we actually have Team Finesse versus Team Reborn. Team Reborn is a absolute powerhouse of a team. We have, if there is anything that we have learned from previous PCLs, it is that Team Reborn they've definitely set themselves up to to be the namesake for North America and kind of like the competitors and guys to watch. With that being said, Team Finesse has made their way onto the scene. This is a team with Chill Phil, Suki, as well as Louis Sear, Strafe, and Proficiency. Ton of talent. Absolute ton of talent. And a lot of these guys have actually been in the scene for quite a while now, moved around to different teams, but they have found their way to one another, and they are an absolute powerhouse. So let's talk a little bit about the picks and bans here, if you guys want to get into that.
Yeah, so each team did have one ban.
That's correct.
Team Finesse went ahead and banned Decker against Team Reborn. Obviously, Decker is kind of a power pick, and Team Reborn is kind of known for picking Decker and just running the show with her.
Absolutely.
So they went ahead and banned Decker against them. Team Reborn responded by banning Morgesh. Obviously, that high burst damage they just didn't want to deal with, and they were just like, we don't want this. So.
Yeah, so Morgesh, I think, in particular, is a very strong pick right now, specifically in the off lane. She's kind of a flex pick in that she can play both mid lane and the off lane. However, we're really seeing her shine in the off lane role. She's kind of a bully even in the 2v1 matchup. She can control lanes. She has sustain. She has a movement speed boost to kind of let her get out of some sticky situations. So she's just an overall just very powerful pick. And the game prior to this one, for game one, this was a best of 3 series. The first game, Morgesh was picked by Team Finesse, and Suki ran that, and it was pretty scary. So I wasn't surprised to see the Morgesh ban come out of Team Reborn. What I was surprised about is Team Finesse. They actually last round, if I remember correctly, we do not have the live draft up here for you guys, but if I recall correctly, Suki took Revenant in their last round of picks. Yes, in the last rotation, and which was interesting to me because as I pointed out earlier, typically we see the ranged carry in the off lane or in the safe lane, excuse me, in conjunction with a support. This was not the case this game.
That's right.
We saw the Revenant in the off lane, and this is something that Team Finesse actually ran against a number of teams leading up to the finals here, and Suki showed just how powerful that hero can be.
That's right.
So that was a pretty interesting pick. I do really, really like the Sereth pick coming out of Team Reborn here. Sereth just inherently has the tools to deal with a hero like Revenant, in that if Revenant forces a 1v1, Sereth absolutely has the ability to outduel him. You can, as soon as he hits you with the Scar Obliterate combo, which is where a lot of his damage comes from, a lot of that burst damage, Sereth can go ahead and activate her Q and vulnerability, and she can just not care about that damage.
That's right.
So that was pretty interesting to see. Outside of that, is there anything that you guys wanted to point out regarding the draft here?
I definitely think in a more macro sense, just looking at the team comps, Reborn was definitely playing more, I think, for the latter part of the game, just based on the Sevarog Sereth pick. Because this is kind of just an observation, like understanding that Sevarog, takes some time to gain some strength, and like Sereth does also take some time to get to that point where she's able to become like that scary melee carry. I think that it was a smart move on the team, on the side of Team Finesse, at least to wait on that Revenant pick, because Revenant, as we all know, is like that early game where he's able to really utilize those Scar Obliterate combos, is where he derives a lot of his strength, and roaming around in that middle game, using that ultimate to isolate enemies and take them out. So Team Finesse waiting on that niche pick and kind of just treating it as their value pick, and waiting on that, I think, was very important, and I think vital to them moving into the game and understanding, like, all right, we have to either shut these guys down early or late game. It's going to be a lot more difficult for us to play with this game.
Absolutely. And honestly, since you brought up the junglers, I really feel that although I think Sevarog is in a great place right now, I think that there were some better options for Jay Leo here in that jungle role, specifically because they have that Revenant. With that being said, since it was last rotated, I think had that Revenant been picked earlier in the draft, I think we would have seen a different jungler.
Might have seen an more early game dominant.
Absolutely. I think something like a Chimera, I think taking Grux away from Team Finesse, something of that nature, because you can absolutely set that lane up for success by having your duo lane freeze when it's necessary, push when it's necessary, and right around level 3, right around when Grux hits about level 3, Chimera hits around level 3, you can go ahead and take that green buff and look for a dive on that offlaner. Specifically on Revenant, he's extremely vulnerable to ganks, to early game ganks, especially prior to him hitting level 5 and gaining access to that ultimate ability. I don't know how I felt about
and that's the weakness you have to exploit if you're looking at Revenant as that offlane. You're thinking, like, if he playing that kind of off pick where you traditionally seen in a carrier role, you're seeing him in an offlane role, expecting him to hold his own. He might not have those tools to be able to escape, like the Morigeshi, to be able to get that move speed and run away, or like maybe even Shinbi or some of the other more common offlaners you might see. They each have an ability that, or some way that allows them for that self peel. Whereas Revenant, due to his like archetypical style, will not have that in his kit. And so that would have been that conceptually on paper is kind of the thing where that's holding your cards before your enemy sees them is very important in that case.
Yeah, and I mean, coming out from Team Reborn, they didn't necessarily pick hard CC. They have the Muriel with the slow, Howitzer, well, I guess, and Sereth with slow, Howitzer with his mine, and then Sevarog with his subjugate. Whereas, they have a lot of displacement. They don't necessarily have a means to just point and click someone down. Something like the Narbash, even the Grux coming out, being able to pull people to him. So I think them flexing the Revenant was actually a really, really smart play, especially last rotation.
Absolutely.
Because if you can just keep the enemy team guessing the whole time and not like them know or even predict what you're going to do, you can bust out something like a Revenant and then try and roll the game.
Right, absolutely. I think this was just extremely smart drafting by Team Finesse, to be honest with you. I was very impressed by it. They grabbed the Grux for some of the early game. Murdoch is actually someone new who we started seeing over this past tournament. Murdoch recently got some changes as well. I know that we've been seeing some feedback from people on him. I've been personally loving playing that hero post rework. He now has the ability to poke at you from 2,000 plus units away once he has his E all maxed out.
Right.
He can be pretty scary. So without further ado, let's stop talking about the draft. Let's go ahead and get into game here and take a look at
Games.
game.
Let's
Not
do
us.
it.
Games.
You can look at us if you'd like, but I'm sure you'd rather see the game.
Yeah, so we're gonna go and hop in here. We do have some specific key talking points, so we're not just kind of like going through every second of the game. Ed, why don't you go ahead and lead us off with our first talking point?
Sure. So if you want to go ahead and we can start playing here and let it roll here. It looks like we have NATO Strafe and Louis are here against Reflect in the off lane. We see Narbash moving up, doing some zoning here, doing the typical support thing, just being as annoying as possible. Reflect takes a huge chunk of damage there. Looks like he's making his way over to the white camp. This is typically what we see from the offlaner, moving up when you can to soak up some XP, and then moving over to your white camps whenever you take a little too much damage, get it back off, and securing those for some XP.
So one thing I want to point out here is Louis Ayer playing that Narbash and Strafe playing that Murdoch. With Murdoch, you might not have known, has that.
Ooh,
yeah,
that was sneaky.
very
That
nice.
was
Very nice.
so that right there was very, very smart of Reflect. So one of the big things, and we'll get back to Mooney's point here in just a second. I really, really like that play from Reflect, knowing when the gold buff is spawning. Gold buff spawns at 3 minutes. He is able to take advantage of the elevation there, and Sereth was able to use her E, her Ascend, and steal that gold buff away. That's kind of more of the I'm not taking anything away from Reflect here. That was fantastic. With that being said, I think that it's very important. It's vital for the duo lane to keep tabs on that timer and know when that gold buff is coming up, because that is 300 CP. There were some changes to the gold buff in 40.
That's right.
It is a lot easier to take now. When I say easier, I mean it takes less hits in general. Health was reduced. The damage
think
threshold.
river buff in scope of the damaging.
Exactly.
In that
Exactly.
realm.
So now it's in line with here we see some aggression from NATO. Jumping on Suki here, getting a lot of damage down.
Close.
I don't think they end up they don't end up securing the kill, but they get a ton of damage there. Literally one basic attack from either one of them would have secured that kill. With that being said, I think there's a lot of value in sending that Revenant back and making sure to keep him down as long as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to that gold buff really quick. 300 CP. Make sure you guys are keeping track of when that timer is. Spawns at 3 minutes. And yeah, that was just an awesome play by Reflect to go ahead and steal some of that CP away.
That's right.
I was actually, the other thing I was going to say earlier, I was just going to make a Too Fast, Too Furious joke, because it's because Murdoch and Louis they both have move speed. The hot pursuit now, that's the lane. That's what I was going to call it, the lane. That's fine. Let's just go back. Let's do the game. Let's do the game thing. That's one thing I think is important to note is that sending somebody back can be just as damaging their team as killing them, because you are denying them all of that time. And the time they have to focus on getting back to lane, the time they have to the time that is lost in them respawning, and all of the intangibles that you might not know because of not being in lane.
Right.
So like that, your bottom lane could have, or the opposing safe lane could have put wards in certain areas where you may not know, and now you lack that information. So you're losing information, maybe not losing CP, but you may be losing information, which is just as vital in a MOBA.
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely. So here we see Nazgul get chunked a little bit in the mid lane here, and we see Chillfill coming over to the mid lane. Not necessarily looking for a gank or anything outside of shoving that wave straight to the tower, making Nazgul have to overextend a little bit or play very far back to wave clear, and we see J. Leo rotate over to help him out. That's something pretty important. I think the synergy between the mid laner and the jungler is extremely important, especially in Paragon. We see it across other MOBA as well, but specifically in Paragon, I think having that synergy between your mid laner and your jungler is extremely important. And there we saw Chillfill rotate over to the mid lane, shove that in, and then we see J. Leo respond by coming over to the mid lane and helping him clear some of those minions out.
Now, with the changes to V40, obviously we see Team Finesse very quickly take down the Tier 1 in the left lane. This is actually the tower closest to the Raptor camp. Now, why would this tower be specifically important? Ed, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Right. So I think inherently there's a little more. I love that banner, by the way.
Yeah,
I love that banner. So I think inherently there is more pressure on the safe lane that is across from the Raptor pit, nearest the prime side, to get that turret down as quick as possible, so that it allows them to rotate over to that Raptor pit. not having your duo lane there and having that be your weak side, inherently you're going to lose some pressure around that Raptor pit. And as soon as they spawn, we'll start seeing teams kind of start maneuvering towards there. And here we saw them take the tier 1 pretty quickly against Reflect. Here we see Reflect doing the same thing again. He's got the timer on that gold buff. Jumping in, jumping out, grabbing that CP. Awesome play by him. But yeah, so like I said, inherently there's a lot more pressure here. We're seeing Jay Leo actually joining in on some of the action here in their on their strong side, trying to get that turret down as fast as possible. I'm assuming that's why he rotated over there. Like I said, very important that you try to get that down as fast as possible. Typically, we will see teams on that side of the map take it relatively early and then rotate over to that side to make up for the numbers disadvantage that they have.
And here at 7 minutes, we actually have like a weird and crazy occurrence. We see Finesse get a little too greedy. They push up on Team Reborn and they try to take this camp here. Obviously, Reflect is like, no way, man, come back here.
Yeah,
they try for the gank, but let's take this back. I actually like this play quite a bit.
Okay.
So we can see they're trying to escape. Sarah's on top of them, and here Louiser's like, I have the stun. It's not for you. It's actually for the howitzer in the back.
That was a good call.
And that was like, that's actually massive, right? Because they did have this vision down. They knew he was coming. And honestly, if a howitzer gets in range, he can slow you and knock you back.
Absolutely.
And that would have probably been a dead anyone. Doesn't matter who it would have been. So really great plays coming out from the support, Louiser, which, by the way, he's an incredible Narbash. Like, throughout this game, we're going to look at a lot of really key moments where he's just kind of a boss.
I happen to, when I queue up, I typically play a lot with these guys and end up matching it. I can tell you right off the bat, these guys are exceptionally talented. These guys are mechanically just extremely great players, and if there's anywhere, if you guys are looking to elevate your game, these are the absolute guys. These are the guys who you want to watch. These are the guys who you want to be checking out. There is a reason to almost everything that they do. Very, very skilled players, and I just wanted to speak on that a little bit because Zeke pointed out how awesome of a support Louisier is.
This is my favorite guy in the world, Chillphil. Oh my God.
Chillphil is a great guy.
I swoon every time I watch him play. Chillphil is the man.
So he's got the green buff there. Looks like he's just cleaning up some camps. We got Suki back in the base. He's going to go ahead and head. So go ahead and pull up the scoreboard real quick. Let's see where we're at CP wise. So Suki is now level 6 on the Revenant. He's sitting at about 10 CP, 29 CS. If you match that against Reflect, he's level 5, 23 CS. Keep in mind, he did secure those 2 gold buffs, which is allowing him to stay tied up with Suki there. Suki just got that next card point. Something that I can't speak to this enough. I really, really think you're going to start seeing, actually just across the scoreboard now, you can start seeing the Team Finesse pull ahead in terms of player level. They're starting to get about a level ahead of everybody else on Team Reborn. And something that I really would have liked to see was a little bit more aggression again on that against that Revenant in that off lane. I really think that that's something that you can take advantage of. If you let him get going or you let him come online and keep him unchecked, he's scary. Revenant is honestly, in my opinion, probably the scariest hero in a 1v1 situation. His isolation with his R ability, with his ultimate ability, is pretty scary. So I really would have liked to see more aggression from Reborn on that side of the map.
So I think that interesting thing is that, and I remember the scoreboard. I've a photograph of me just like Kale from this morning. So the interesting thing about like the CP and level differences is like Finesse pulling ahead in some of the player levels, like staying in lane, soaking that hero experience is very important. The other interesting thing to note is while Reflect did get those 2 gold buffs, Nadosec has mounted a slight lead on Strafe in terms of CP due to the denial of the gold buff rather than any other like safe lane like minion difference or last hit difference. Is because of that duel. And now we see, like you were speaking about earlier, about the importance of that first tier tower and Raptors. So if you guys want to talk a little bit more about a lot of the play that folks have been a lot of the plays and the warding and the conceptualization around the objectives ever since 40. There've been a lot more like focus on like lane swapping, that sort of thing. So if you want to break that down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right there was just pretty straightforward. I mean, they had again, Reborn was grouped up on that side of the map. They were able to secure those. We're seeing Team Finesse now respond with the tier 1 tower here against Reborn. With that being said, I'm in favor of. I think this goes a little bit in favor of Team Reborn. They're able to get all 3 Raptors secured and onto Nadosic. Nadosic has an absolutely disgusting twin blast. He
really does.
And again, I know I keep speaking to it. You see him secure the gold buff there. But they're setting him up for success here, which I like. They're giving Nado the tools that he needs to go ahead and get ahead here. With that being said, Team Finesse does a great job of responding with that tier 1 tower. Here we see Strafe, Louisier, and Chillfill sitting in the mid lane. Chillfill sitting on that invisibility buff, clearing out some wards. They're doing an aggressive invade here. Don't know if he's going to go for this green buff here or not. They have a good amount of control. You see Jay Leo just kind of strafing in and out there, trying to apply some pressure and defend his jungle. He takes a big chunk of damage from that Revenant, though.
That's that combo.
Reflect ends up getting pooled. Muriel ults in. Great clap by Chillfill there, and they're able to secure the kill onto Reflect.
The unfortunate part of that engagement is I think that that Team Reborn is a little bit lagging on the actual engagement itself.
Yes.
When I think Jaleo probably wanted to have committed on that green buff a lot earlier.
Sure.
Just for just from the point that Reflect was able to wrap, but by the time he's able to wrap, Chillfill has already been able to get this green buff low enough and know like maybe how many spells he has to cast to actually acquire it.
Right.
And by the time Muriel flies in, Reflect has already taken so much damage, because Phil has been went into that saying, I'm going to Q this, right mouse button this, I'll get the damage on Reflect, as well as CCing him, as well as getting the green buff.
Right. And even prior to that, though, I think that chunk onto Jay Leo was so huge. You could see Jay Leo really wanted to get aggressive and defend his jungle there, rightfully so. With that being said, as soon as you take all of that damage, give up the green buff.
That's right.
Let him take the green buff. Don't give up any kills. Reflect was already coming around for the flank, so it seemed like a little bit of miscommunication there. Maybe Jay Leo wasn't expecting that amount of damage to come down onto him. Reflect goes for the engage, gets the Muriel ult, but they still end up losing that fight, and a big part of that was that initial chunk that came in onto Jay Leo.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to like managing your resources, right? Like, is one green buff worth your team losing resources? You know, they lose the Muriel ultimate, they lose
the mid-tier 1 here.
Yeah, and the mid-tier 1, and all of those things combined is honestly really bad, right? Like, you don't want to lose that economy, and you don't want to give that advantage to your enemy. So in that kind of situation, it's always just best to just give up the green buff, give up the gold buff, whatever it is, like, stay alive and make sure that you put pressure on them and put pressure on the enemy team elsewhere, right? Like, don't just give them a green buff and say, all right, cool, you just get that.
Definitely.
And though I get the reasoning, right? Like, obviously trying to fight that, they wanted to force something, but to Mooney's point, they did lag a little bit.
Yeah.
And the moment that he took the Scar Obliterate combo, they had a huge window to then like operate and try to like dissect the enemy team, but they were so slow to react that they just kind of lost that time, that opportunity.
And taking it to an even higher level, the big thing to understand is that a lot of these mid-game engagements are going to be decided by purposeful movement, which is such a vital aspect of MOBAs. Understanding where you're moving and why, and the intentions behind those movement, is what drive a lot of the economy changes and the push and pull of the MOBA economy throughout the course of the game.
Absolutely.
So at that point, when Finesse was tempting that we're going to take this green buff, I believe the proper flowchart, MOBA flowchart, is to think, hey, okay, they're taking green buff. Where can I equalize this economic loss in another area of the map?
Right.
So thinking of you want to make sure that in these like macro map movements, you're making sure to break down like where you're losing and gaining resources. Where Finesse is trying to we're going to constantly gain these resources and push forward our advantage. And that you could see that in that initial little advantage in the hero levels. They're like, we're going to stay in lane, farm up, and make sure that we make the right map movements and purposeful movements. Hero level deficit is the biggest indicator of a lack of purposeful movement.
Sure.
This fight is insane, by the way.
So it looks like Finesse goes for an aggressive invade again. A bunch of spells drop down. Suki ends up picking up a kill here onto Jay Leo, it looks like. Yeah, and I mean, they are just... So we're going to need to go ahead and back this up a little bit. Let's go ahead and run through this, and if you could slow it down just a little bit, Zeke. We'll go ahead and highlight some of the key things that happened here in this fight.
Just a second and catch up. So yeah, by this point, Finesse decides, and they actually do this a lot this game. They decide to invade Reborn's jungle. As they start to peel back, obviously they're like, just kidding, we're going to come back in. We see 4 members ready to rotate in. Chillfill's on top of them.
Right. So there's the Colossal Blow into the combo, onto Chillfill. Looks like they were trying to blow him up as fast as possible, but instead the counter initiate comes in. Chillfill lives with a sliver of health, gets the E off, and instead Jay Leo ends up going down. Lewis Sears pops all of his spells, gets that regen in the AoE, starts popping the Crash Bang Boom, and they end up actually turning that around, and that is really unfortunate. And what probably should have been a 1-for-1 ends up being a 1-for-0, and Suki's on the chase here, going on to Reflect. There's the Muriel ult coming down. Again, like I pointed out earlier, I think that Sereth is a fantastic pick against Revenant in particular. Revenant's not able to pick up that kill because of the Muriel, so that's great by Master Splinter there, keeping Reflect alive. And it looks like they're just going to back off here.
This is funny because this is a case of you think I'm pulling one over on me. I think I'm pulling one over on you, but you're actually pulling one over on me. Because if you look at the way Jay Leo and Reflect kind of faked that camp, where they were like, oh, we're going to do this camp, but not actually, because Jay Leo swung that ultimate around with the quickness. He came around with that ultimate knowing that he was going to have to ulti, knowing that there were other members of Finesse there. Problem is his math was a little off.
Yeah.
That's what ended up happening. And that tends to be the scenario with these engagements. If your math isn't right with how many people you think are there based on your vision or knowledge of the scenario, and that's all it is, knowledge control at that point. The execution itself, you spoke to the high-level skill of these players. At this point, it becomes the execution. You have the execution of the phase of the team fight, but you also have the knowledge portion.
Absolutely.
And if you lose the knowledge portion, the execution portion gets a lot harder.
That's right. And one thing I really like about this fight specifically, talking specifically about the supports and how important a support can be to any fight. The moment that Splinter decides to go in on Sereth, on Reflect, there's a moment where it's like Reflect is pretty sure he's going to die, and you can kind of tell. You see him turn this corner.
Almost gets hit by that laser.
Almost. So he comes in right here, right?
There's the scar going out.
He takes the scar right there, and he's like, okay, just kidding. I don't know if we can fight this. And he ults, and then he immediately starts to retreat, right? He's like, just kidding. I think I'm going to die. Right here is Revenant. He decides, I'm going to Reckoning him, and I'm going to take him out. Master Splinter steps in front. And I don't know if you guys can actually see this. We'll slow this down a little more. He actually decides, I'm going to step in front and block the targeting for it. And he actually forces Suki to Reckoning him. So
because we see the obliterates come in later, and that would have, Yeah.
And so he actually forces, so right there, boom.
Wow.
He ulted Master Splinter. And now you can see, like, he starts to take a step back, and he's like, okay, all right, well, I guess I'll just chase and hope that I can maybe hurt the Muriel. I don't know. So, and he does, but at that time, it's like, dude, it's Master Splinter. He's a support. He's not going to die to that.
Right.
I think at this point it's maybe like the kind of I was going to do this to Sereth, so I'm going to do it to somebody.
Someone's going to get this.
Somebody's going to get scar obliterated. If I will be damned otherwise. But that's the sort of thing you finish that team fight. Very important note that off the bat, Finesse knew exactly what they were doing, going to the jungle, clearing those wards, and you saw them placing the ward down, knowing that they just had to cut vision for a second because they had the knowledge in the scenario, and then come right back around with the 4 members of the team.
That's right.
So, great team fight by them.
Definitely. And it looks like if you want to go ahead, and it looks like we have some rotations over to that Raptor pit. If we want to highlight Chillfill right now, so you get his...
let's look at the old Chillfill. Let's see where you
get his POV. It looks like they're setting up here for those Raptors again. Pretty uncontested. I'm not seeing anybody coming over on the side of Reborn here to contest these.
And we can see like another vision advantage. Like they have the main ward in the Raptor pit. They have the left side of the pit warded as well. The only ward on the side of Team Reborn is on the other side of the wall for the off lane. So very smart movement by Finesse to take advantage of those Raptors as soon as they spawned and take those out. And I think that's going to be a lot of the important. If we want to go and pull the score, maybe this is at the point where we might start to see that Finesse pull a little bit away, because they have those 2 mini team fights that they did win, and then they do have the Raptors that they did manage to acquire. I believe Reborn get the first Raptors?
No, Finesse actually got the first 2 objectives.
First 2, yeah. So Finesse getting the first 2.
They actually secured the remember they actually secured the Raptors onto NATO Sick earlier, and that is why NATO is sitting at 24 right
That's
now.
right.
Yeah,
he's got a massive lead.
Yeah, so he's pretty strong. With that being said, Strafe is sitting at 25, but again, most of Reborn, as Mooney was pointing out, the CP is behind their counterparts of Team Finesse, with the exception of NATO, who's only behind by a point or so. We're starting to see that kind of take effect here. Everybody on Team Finesse just recently spent right before that and went straight over to the pit. to secure those. So just great rotations, great team play by them. We want to look forward a little bit to the 17-minute mark, we can fast forward just a little bit. We can actually talk about, while Zeke's doing that, we can talk a little bit more about the Revenant. As far as counterplay, is there anybody who comes to mind outside of the Sereth pick that we've already talked about? What picks do we think that Reborn could have gone with to apply more pressure to the hero, who just naturally, inherently does well against the hero?
Aurora and Steel.
Aurora and Steel. Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead and talk about why you think
So
Aurora and
Steel, because Steel is right now the ultimate counter to abilities because of his new passive. He can very much eat half of the Obliterate and basically take, 50% reduced damage or something crazy like that. Aurora, because if he targets Obliterate on her and she flips, she doesn't take damage. Ooh, this is a crazy team fight.
Yeah, looks like Chillfield was looking to get aggressive, ends up eating the Colossal Blow by Jay Leo, but ends up getting a nice pull onto Reflect there. Pulls him into the team, but NATO 6 able to clean him up. Proficiency is super low here. He's going to have to back up, but look at Suki. He's in the back there doing some damage. Lewis Sears pretty low here, probably going to get picked up as well by NATO. So NATO ends up picking up 2 kills here. Naz is still alive. We have Splinter behind him.
Suki's just been running rampant in the back half of this team
Right.
fight. But at this point it becomes the numbers game. He is able to trade one for 2, I think, in that
That's
fight
right.
for
Yeah,
himself.
probably a best case scenario for him there, considering his team just lost that exchange. So if you want to back up, we can go ahead and talk about some things that happened there.
This fight was actually nuts. Just give it a second.
We can highlight some of the things that happened there. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. Some other picks that come to mind as far as keeping Revenant down, I think that, again, Sereth is awesome. I think that Countess is a very good pick against Revenant, actually. She's able to, if she holds on to her ultimate, plays her cards right, she's able to interrupt that Obliterate.
Yep.
So she will completely negate the Scar Obliterate combo and just burst him out.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and look
You
at
can't kill me if you're dead.
You can't kill me if you're dead.
That's the good old trick. Got him.
It's very good analysis.
So right here, I think Chillfield makes a little bit of a mistake. He feels like he can just walk through this fog wall, and then Leo Grande is like, no. What's up? Here's my team.
Colossal Blow. He
gets
eats a
bursted
chunk of
down.
damage from NATO there in the mid lane. Okay, so let's go ahead and slow this down just a little bit. There's the pull coming in. There's Reflect. Reflect goes ahead and activates the invulnerability there. Gets the Muriel ult, bides him some time, saves some damage. NATO with the cleanup onto Chillfield, trying to get away there. Lewis here's in the middle of the action, just trying to get as big of a crash bang boom off as possible. But meanwhile, look at NATO. NATO is literally behind the team right now, getting all that damage down onto proficiency. Lewis here's already low. They end up cleaning him up. Naz is in the back there. Oh man, that Q was
There you go.
That
R2000.
Q was awesome. Naz is probably one of my, if not, he's probably my favorite mid laner to watch in the game, to be honest with you. He just
don't
brings
blame
the
you.
hype. He's absolutely awesome player. And Suki ends up trading here. He ends up going for the Q, and it does spread damage between Jay Leo and him. Unfortunately, most of that damage goes down onto the howitzer, but Jay Leo is able to trade that kill back. So all in all, in favor of Team Reborn.
Yeah. I think one thing to note as well is, like, you speak a lot about NATO and, his carry potential. Like, he's kind of one of those players that at every possible moment is thinking, like, what can I do to gain any kind of advantage? And it really shows here. After all of this goes down, let's see if we can find him. So he just jumps down. He's like, I don't care. I'm in your face. Like, this is your carry, right? Your carry is not the guy in front. Your carry is not the guy to lead the charge. He doesn't care. He's just sitting here literally in the front line, and has just created opportunities for himself to pick up 2 huge kills and giving him such an advantage. And then by that moment, he's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let's just pick off Suki. Like, all right, I'm here. I'm on the back.
One of the imperative things to note when you are playing the carry role is when to be aggressive, when to be more safe. There is a perfect example. NATO knows all the limitations of his hero, and he's able to extend a little bit. He knows when to go aggressive and pick up some kills there, and that really showed in his positioning.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and let's see what the CP looks like after that fight. Again, that went in favor of Team Reborn, and NATO is at 30 CP now.
It's insane. That's
30.
insane. That's a huge lead on everyone.
Pretty strong at this point.
Yeah.
If you even just look at, like, Chillfill, who's the jungler, who typically, like most junglers, are a little starved, but not, maybe third most starved on the team. Like, he's 9 points ahead of Chillfill. That means if Grux stepped anywhere near him, he could just blow Grux away.
Right.
And that in itself is huge, right? Because then that means that the enemy jungler can't really jump you and try to, like, CC you.
Right.
If you could just blow him up.
One thing I'm curious to see is if we move along, as we move along in this game, will we be able to see the same trend of Nadosic retaining that CP advantage despite his team having a level disadvantage? Because one thing that's very important is that heroes heroes that are more reliant on their inherent power will scale better off of levels. So, for example, Chillfill on that Grux is able to be a lot more impactful if he does get those levels.
Right.
Suki on Revenant earlier on was really valuing those levels, and they're really just allowing Strafe to play truly that role of carry, while Suki attracts a lot of the attention in the team fights. I think going in concept going forward, because in that last fight, what really stopped them from being able to focus Suki was Chillfill kind of running in there. I'm going to start this engagement with Louis Sayre, and then everybody else will come in. But really smart move by Master Splinter to immediately ult reflect, forcing Chillfill the only path of possible exit, which is through the Howitzer ultimate, eating the last bit of damage, allowing NATO to pick up an easy kill. But I think that's going to be the important thing to watch as we get farther and farther into this game.
Right.
That's right. And I think one thing for Team Reborn that they can use as a carry tool is actually reflect, right? The Seraph late game is absolutely terrifying, and her ability to dodge just about everything that Team Finesse can throw at her with, barring that his timing is on. We have to look to reflect and hope, really, that he can carry this game by himself. Because, Seraphs are terrifying, but as you've seen in these past couple fights, they burst him down immediately because they know if they leave Seraph alive, she's just going to tear through your team.
Right.
So we'll have to keep a close eye on that.
Yeah, we've kind of really seen him in the mix here. They're trying to combo the Seraph going in with the Muriel ult every time. Unfortunately, Reflect's not able to pick up any of these kills, but he is soaking up a lot of damage. He's soaking up some abilities. He's sitting at about 21 CP at this point in the game. Got a little bit of catching up to do, but it's important to note that both teams are running the double carry. Even though one is in the form of a melee as opposed to a range, they are still running double carry. This should still be classified as a double carry versus double carry game. Well, unless do you guys disagree with that, or?
Oh no, I mean, I think one of the things the important distinction is that melee versus range, really, because you're trading off the early game weakness for late game strength versus late game weakness for early game strength.
Right.
Because Revenant and Serath are two sides of that coin.
Looks like Finesse is invading again here. Jay Leo going in. They're trying to defend. Oh, Chillfill whiffs the ult. Oh, but he gets the Q onto Jay Leo there.
Huge team fight.
This is
terrifying.
absolute
look at that, Louis Sayre.
You start seeing the spells go down. There it is. That was absolutely disgusting by Louis Sayre. And
walks
does he live?
away with a little bit of health.
No way. Does Reflect end? Okay, looks like Reflect ends up getting that pick.
Splinter goes down, but NATO does in fact.
Louis Sayre was huge in that.
We'll actually take
huge
that
in
back.
that fight. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's go ahead and run that back. We'll take a closer look at that. And it all starts again. It looks like most of these engagements are forced by Team Finesse in invading almost every time we've seen thus far, at least.
So here you can see they're deciding. Chillfill's going in. He's like, I'm going to CC everything I can. Unfortunately, he does in fact whiff. What's cool here is that Louis Sayre is already in the front line. He's already committed to this idea. I'm just going to CC all of you idiots. And as you can tell right here, he's like, cool, there's 3 people around me. Wait for it. And then right here, the Crash Bang Boom comes out. 3 members. This is huge, right?
Absolutely.
Slowing all these people and Gadget's ult. There it is.
The double knockup.
Gigantic proficiency ult here. Just shredding through them. 2 members fall. And then walks away.
Louis Sayre is the absolute MVP. I know he ends up getting cleaned up here by Reflect, but he is the absolute MVP, and that's all started off
cut the video.
Cut the video, we're done.
By the aggressiveness of Team Finesse again. Grux ends up whiffing the ultimate ability, but he does get that crucial pull onto Jay Leo there.
One thing I'm curious about is I feel like Finesse has been really been able to force Reborn to play their game in their own jungle.
That's right.
Which is really intelligent. One thing I'm curious about is if later in I just said one thing I'm curious about twice. Later in the game, if they're able to actually convert that. So let's say in 10 minutes, 30 minutes in, are they able to actually convert that? Because I know a lot of those later game team fights, you guys had noted some really cool points that happened. So I think checking out some of those later game team fights is really what's going to be indicative of if they're able to convert that into a win.
That's right.
But yeah, again, just highlighting that last game. I think something or that last play, excuse me. Lucier is my MVP for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This guy. God, Lucier.
One of the other things that I wanted to highlight, Mooney, I really like that you pointed out, up to this point, it really seems like Finesse is driving the aggression and dictating when these team fights are happening, which honestly I'm not a big fan of. That's something that Chill Phil is kind of known for. He kind of just his positioning is awesome, but we're kind of seeing him be the aggressor here in this situation, kind of OEing aggressively, starting things off with a pull or a clap. But I really think that Reborn needs to be a little more aggressive in these fights. Yes, against the double ranged carry composition here. I think you start showing some of that aggression a little bit earlier than when we initially started seeing it come out, and not let them dictate the pace of this game.
That's right.
So we can go ahead and let's see. Okay, looks like we have Finesse again on the.
This is where I think this is like a major turning point of this game specifically. Like Finesse again, they go for these Raptors, and Reborn just isn't having it anymore. They're like, we're going to start fighting over this.
Right.
This is going to be kind of chaotic for a little bit. We're going to have to go in and kind of slow everything down.
Sure. We'll let it play if we'll speak first. We'll see
yeah,
what
but
things look like.
there's actually a lot of small things that happen here that really dictate what happens and who very much wins this team fight. It's just chaos. It's absolute chaos.
Yeah.
But Finesse Gaming is now on the back foot. They've been ahead this entire time, super confident. They're sure they're going to win this, and then suddenly Reborn is like, no, like this is now our game. We want to win this fight.
Yeah,
and
we're actually seeing that aggression turn around
decides, I'm just going to bail.
No, my
I'm just
goodness.
leaving. I'm just going to leave. Bye.
These supports are survivors, man.
They are survivors. These are some of the best
nothing.
supports I think I've ever seen. So let's go ahead and take this way, way back. This
Absolutely.
is a long skirmish. There's so much to cover. This going over this and reviewing this actually took me like a long time just to figure out everything that happens. All right, so Louis Sierra is like, oh, let me he's like, let me look around this corner. Okay, there is 4 members of Reborn.
So
Immediately
this is interesting.
Stasis.
Yes, this is interesting. So if we want to pause it right here for just a second, and let's bring up the scoreboard there.
Let's see, bringing up the scoreboard.
So something of note, Louis Sierra picks up the Stasis gem here.
Yes.
This is a card that we have been seeing picked up a ton, specifically by Team Finesse. They love this card.
Right.
Absolutely love this card, and we're going to start seeing it fill out in some of the builds here. Looking at the builds right now, looks like Revenant is sitting on a Stasis gem.
That's right.
As well as Louis Sierra. To be perfectly honest with you, I did not believe, although Stasis gem recently got a bit of a buff. It's about a 45-second cooldown now for that active.
Right.
Able to socket it with damage if you so choose. It also is cost 5 now.
Right.
That makes it pretty affordable, even considering that supports typically are on the lower end of the economy for these teams. How do you guys feel about it? How do you guys feel about this pickup?
Well, I think what really will cement whether it's an intelligent purchase or not is how he's really able to use it in a team fight effectively. Because the power of an active card versus a passive card is that the active effect actually you derive the amount of card points that make up that card. So for example, 6 power on the card, you're like, all right, I ascribe that to one card point of value, but how much do I ascribe to the value of the active, and how much am I actually going to utilize the value of that active? So it's, if you're using the card at 100% efficiency, I think it'll be a great card in a team fight just based off the stat allocation.
Sure.
But I think that it's up to the user to really define the worth of the card.
That's right.
Yep.
And I think specifically the double pickup of the Stasis Gem is actually like really smart in this situation based on a lot of the AoE that comes out of Reborn, right? Like Howitzer's ultimate, Grande's Colossal Blow, even Sparrow's Invulnerability where she's hitting everything in an AoE. Being able to just run in, especially like Louis here did it. He walks in, he gets trapped, and he's like, okay, well, let me hit this button, activate Stasis Gem, and I have 2.5 seconds to react, to be like, hey, team, I need you now.
Right. I would have liked to see that Stasis being popped a little bit earlier from Louis here, to be honest with you. He already took the brunt force of that damage.
That's right.
So he was able to be cleaned up pretty quickly after this. But with that being said, Chill Phil tries to come up here and tries to protect his ally.
Boom.
Beautiful pull onto the duo lane there. There's the Howitzer ult coming down. Very good ult by Naz there, trying to sort of zoning off the team. That is actually a pretty key ultimate by Nazgul, to be honest with you, trying to zone out what is the remainder of the enemy team. keeping them from capitalizing on that pool. Louisier is here, activates the crash, bang, boom, doesn't get anybody with it, I don't believe. Reflect goes ahead and burns his Q, and at that point, he eats all of the damage. That's a lot of damage going down onto him. Chillphil gets another pull onto J. Leo. The Muriel ult is still up. J. Leo goes down here. Suki pops his stasis as well.
It blocks a howitzer rocket and 3 shots from NATO. Just gonna call that out there.
Yeah, that was super, super clutch. He's pretty low here. We have Master Splinter looking to go aggressive. But Master Splinter is alone here. He ends up picking up the kill onto
My
Suki.
man, let's go.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there's the blink.
Can he secure it?
You know, sometimes you got to do the carries work for them and finish off the kills. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
I respect that. I respect that play from Strafe.
Honestly, like in all fairness, that was a dead Muriel, right? He decides I'm gonna go for it. Like if he had blinked, killed her, he could have blinked out, right? So he goes in, and you can see it's very close. The shot barely misses, barely. But at the same time, he has to blink through a fog wall, so he loses vision for a moment, blinks, and just hopes that he's tracking her and that she's there.
Not gonna hold that one against him.
Yeah. So I mean, all in all, for this shot, it's actually super close, right? Like,
yeah, definitely.
That's how close this could have been. Honestly, Master Splinter, I feel like there's no way he could have known that there was going to be a blink follow-up, but for him to take a sidestep just like casually and barely die, he probably had like a small heart attack. He's probably like, oh, you're there. Oh, okay, that was close. That was really close.
All right, so we can go ahead, and that was a huge major team fight.
That's right.
Let's go ahead and fast forward to 29:30 in game time, and while we do that, we'll keep an eye on the scoreboard. If you want to pull that up for just a second, Zeke, we'll see while we fast forward through this gameplay, see where everybody's sitting at CPU wise. Looks like kills are dead even at this point.
Yeah, and you start to see what you start to see if you're like looking at the items is a lot of folks picking up more team fight friendly items. You know, you see Chillphil picking up a Thermobond, I believe. If I'm yeah, so picking up that Thermobond, I saw Nazgul picked up the Ash of the Witch. So a lot more of these cards, more of these active and passive cards that'll have a lot more use in team fights. Whereas earlier on, we really only saw supports utilizing that through the quenching skills and onto the pure.
Sure. We're
going to see a lot more of the carries and the mages utilizing the cards like the blinks, the stasis gem, like we talked about on Louisier, and the Ash of the Witch. The cards that will allow them to facilitate their abilities into a team fight and convert that into like a successful team fight and maybe a push after that. See a lot more heavy investment in builds at this point.
Definitely.
Now, with one of the newest cards we added in 40, this is actually like the first time I've actually seen this in a high-level game.
Okay.
I personally don't use it because I'm scared to use it wrong. I feel like 90% of the time I'm going to use it wrong, and I'm going to feel dumb.
Yeah,
so can you speak a little bit about this card, why it's good, and its purpose?
Sure. I actually love this pickup in this situation, specifically on Strafe, and I'll tell you why. Murdoch, post-rework, ended up getting some range. He got some love.
Right.
In that his basic attacks, every couple seconds now, you get extended range. Okay?
Right.
Allows him to play that poke game, really keep his distance, gain a little bit of an advantage there. Hemorrhage, paired with a hero who can stand on the back line, away from threat, away from damage, huge benefit. I love this pickup on Murdoch specifically. I kudos to Strafe for picking this up. The card itself grants you 6 seconds of increased attack speed as well as movement speed, but you take 15% additional damage.
Right.
That being said, if you're playing Murdoch effectively, staying in that back line, taking advantage of that range that he now has, even if it's just for that one shot, pop that hemorrhage, get that damage off, move forward a little bit, you have that attack speed, get your DPS off, keep yourself at a safe distance. I love this pickup from Murdoch.
It's also additionally good, going with my car metaphor from earlier, my genius car metaphor. Going with that from earlier, it's good that he gets the max move speed, because you think about it in a team fight, if people are, you're getting low into a team fight, you're starting wanting to get those kills and wanting to actually get involved as the carry, it's going to be at that point that you're going to be, obviously I'm going to, this is my chance. I get that extra range. I pop hemorrhage. I can get a couple of shots off. But now they're low. You have 80 max move speed, and oh no, you're in hot pursuit of some criminals. It's like popping the NOS, and then you just zoom into a team fight, pick off some kills.
Yep.
And that's honestly going to be, because you have that safe range. You get the first couple of seconds of hemorrhage, but when you get in there, you get the move speed for the engagement portion of it.
Right.
But at that point, maybe you're not taking the 15% extra damage anymore, and now you've just exhausted all of the benefits of the card without necessarily inheriting the negative aspects.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely. And I actually didn't even think about that. That's great that you point that out. The synergy between Murdoch inherently, I mentioned the rework of the Hot Pursuit now, gaining that movement speed in conjunction with the active movement speed. That's terrifying.
Too
Yeah.
fast.
Too furious. Wow, there it is. I think, and just to touch on that point one more time, you know, Hot Pursuit really only activates if someone is critically wounded.
Yeah.
So if you get into a position where there's a ton of dudes critically wounded, then like, yeah, your passive kicks in and you're too fast, too furious. But if there's a situation where someone is not critically wounded, being able to activate Hemorrhage and get out or reposition is huge.
Yeah.
So it's very much like, almost like a double-edged sword, right? Like, when do I activate this?
Totally.
It can hurt me, but it also like has such a high reward that it's almost like I want to use it. I want to use it so bad, but
Sure. All right,
not
so we
good.
can go ahead and roll this. We'll start. We'll move ahead a little bit here. I want
We're
to
at
look
29
into
minutes.
29:30 is where I want to be.
29:30.
Yeah, we took note of some craziness that starts happening around that time in game. So we're starting to see some spells being burned here. Naz ends up burning the ultimate ability. Reflect takes some damage, but ends up just ascending out here. Suki drops a ward. Looks like he's just clearing one out here. He's got Phil to back him up. The rest of his team. They're kind of just doing some dancing right now. And again,
Very much posturing.
are we gonna see? Okay, it looks like they're definitely on the. Okay, we see Jay Leo go in. Jay Leo goes in. Looks a little bit forced.
Gonna be a little chaos.
He ends up taking R&B out of the fight. Naz takes a ton of damage there and gets blown up. Chill Phil is low inside the pit. Muriel ult comes down onto Sevarog. Misses the root. Looks like he turns onto Suki, and the carry's there. The backline is together. They're getting a ton of damage down. End up taking out Strafe. Is Chill Phil gonna go down here? Possibly. Lewis here is probably gonna be picked up by Reflect here.
oh
Nice.
man,
Reflect
oh man,
ends up
wait
getting-
for it, wait for
Oh,
it.
beautiful. There's the root coming in from Sevarog. He's just doing the. Oh my goodness, that is so much damage.
So Suki stasis the root and the damage
He
from
did.
the root. So
He
that
did.
that probably won him. It got him that one for one.
1 for 1.
That's
But
right.
the important thing to note here is Reborn probably should have just wholeheartedly won that fight when Nazgul knocked back 4 other people on the team of Finesse and just isolated Phil. But that goes to show you how much Finesse has actually scaled their CP advantage up into the game and really kept that meaningful.
Sure.
In that they're not they're hedging their potential losses in team fights or potential bad engagements by having that advantage. So you see Phil is kind of cordoned off from the rest of the team, while Reflect's kind of doing the sneak move from behind.
That's right, he
There's
flanks
And
it.
finally
the
being
ultimate
able to
coming out.
execute that flank, I'm sure for Reborn being able to execute that gank is kind of like being able to execute your strategy with this kind of team
Right.
comp.
Right.
That was absolutely crucial by proficiency,
Yeah.
by the way. That stasis gem coming out there where Reflect would have picked him up. We saw the howitzer rocket come in right on target. Naz is super deadly with that. Ends up mitigating a lot of that damage with the stasis gem there and prolonging the death.
That's right. And there's actually like a ton of stuff to talk about.
Very interesting move from Strafe to take the knee there to finish off NATO sick and then just
Oh.
gets.
Yeah.
Gets obliterated, yeah.
Mhm.
So like, let's see. Let's let this. Reflect is doing a little dance. Reflect, what are you doing? Reflect. All right. So in this fight specifically, we see that Finesse again tries to force objectives and postures for this objective. Now they scare off Reflect, and they're like, "Cool, we've got advantage. Like, no big deal. You know, let's go ahead and try to do this." What they don't know is Reflect is actually a sneaky snake. He decides, I'm going to walk all the way around, and we can see him start to flank. Jay Leo's like, all right, I'm going to go on Murdoch. I'm going to scare him. They start to freak out. They start to panic, and here comes Reflect. Reflect is like, all right, I'm here, guys. Don't worry.
Got
What
the
this
flank.
does is forces
Double
Gadget.
slow there. There's a
Double slow and forces Gadget's ultimate on just him. Now, Gadget's ultimate's great, but you have to be sitting in it for a while to take a bunch of damage. So he forces out and then just retreats. By this point, Finesse, look 'em, the guys in the front are like, wow, we are almost dead. NATO's coming around the corner, firing bullets. They're like, guys, we have to peel off. We do not have a choice. We have to leave. By this point, Reflect is still here. He's like, oh,
Reflect is still behind
oh, you
him,
guys
yep.
are still here. Cool. Let me dive on proficiency. Now he doesn't pick up the kill, but he zones him super hard. Louise here can't go back in. He's like, hey guys, he's on top of me. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
At this point, this gives Team Reborn full power to just go in and just clean up. There you go. You see Leo Grande just consuming his soul. Chillfield's like, boys, are you here? Hello? Hello? Suki decides, again, I'm going to ult Master Splinter. I have to reposition. I'm not in a good spot. Maybe I can pick this guy off. They have no idea he's running along the wall, which is awesome, by the way. And by this point, he comes back out and
starts wrapping around.
He starts wrapping around. That's when Reflect picks off Narbash, lands the root, pops stasis, and he's like, okay, I've got time. I'm going to go for it.
There's the Scar.
And this is insane, by the way.
Full Obliterate comes
Full Obliterate. So let's just take this back 10 seconds. I love this play by Leo Grande. All right, so Leo's like, cool, my minion wave is right here. I know he's going to try and Obliterate. Starts walking toward the minion wave, but it's too late. He's already cast the ability. He's the only one in the cone, so he's going to take the full damage and trade 1 for 1. That's so huge and such like a sick play.
And honestly, I think the other thing about that team fight is, which is why I really want to see how this game resolves, is because a lot of these teams we've seen a lot of similar stuff happening where the folks who are a little bit more ahead are surviving till the end of that team fight, and you really end up with a scenario where the initial information is kind of like actually lost. The team fights seem to be more devolving more and more to the point where I really want to see Finesse is able to convert this into a win in an efficient way, because Reborn is able to muddy these team fights. And that's something that we didn't see earlier. Finesse was clean cutting these team fights. They were like, we are coming in almost with surgeon-like precision and cutting out this teammate from your team, whereas now it's like sort of everybody's throwing scalpels around, and it's like a surgeon party. So,
Right. And you can just tell like the level of play coming out from both teams. You know, it kind of comes down to like micro decisions, right? Like Reflect deciding, guys, I just need you to buy me literally 3 seconds. If you buy me 3 seconds, I will force them to blow ultimates that they desperately need to turn these fights. So to have Reflect decide, I'm just going to walk all the way around, like who thinks about that, right? When you're in the pit and you don't have vision, you just assume there's 5 guys on the other side of this wall. Like they're all right here. And then suddenly to hear Sereth behind you ulting, you're just like, oh, everything we thought we were doing has now changed, right?
One thing to note is that we can kind of see the beginnings of sort of that endgame phase in that Reborn's right inhibitor is damaged.
That's right.
So they do not have access to the jump pads. We know that now. And we also have the information that minion wave is... I mean, they've been putting a lot of work into making sure that minion wave's been pushing while they've been forcing these team fights. So despite maybe losing a lot of some of the pressure in the team fights, Suki's been going over this lane, farming, shoving it out, making sure it kept pushing. So when they did have these eventual team fights, the minion wave management allowed them to net some objective power.
Right. So look at this. Here we have Chillfield posturing inside the pit. He's standing behind Orb Prime.
I actually love this, by the way. So if like we go check out what the other team is doing, they're like, hey, you know what? They've got Raptors every time. We're going to just get Raptors now. And you're like, all right, that's a really smart play.
Right.
But Chillfield already knew what they were going to do and almost baited them into the situation, right? Because by the time they realize what happened, it's too late. They've already claimed Orb Prime. They've already set themselves up to try and end this game. And that's huge.
Beautiful shot calling on the side of Team Finesse there. And those are the sorts of things that will really separate these competitive players, these competitive teams from what you would normally see in, let's say, a solo queue environment or something of the sort. When your opponent goes to take an advantage, whether that be Raptors, whether that be grouping around a tower, whether that be overextending, chasing for a kill, these competitive guys, they know something clicks in their head. This is where they're posturing. I'm going to go ahead and look to what other objectives I can secure and gain some of that back.
Right.
Or an even bigger advantage. In this case, they end up coming out ahead, securing that Orb Prime as opposed to the Raptors there from Team Reborn.
I do want to see if we can maybe speed it up a little bit and see how they really convert on this Prime buff. Because I think that's one of the more important things is once you do get that Prime, you don't want to squander it because you have gotten this advantage. And you see they do immediately go into the enemy jungle. Chillfell, you know, he loves, that's where he lives. He doesn't live in his own jungle, he lives in the enemy jungle.
He lives in the enemy jungle.
That's pretty accurate.
Coming in there, definitely picking off Nazgul, an important pick in that case. And it's one of the more straightforward plays like we've seen in the game. Like a lot of these have been a little bit more, Nazgul pushes up a little too far, they don't have the vision to cover it, and Chillfell getting over there, Nazgul doing what he can to try and escape, but at that point, you know, two heroes with Prime engaging onto you, you didn't really have too much vision. Something interesting also to note here is that despite them having some minions there, they don't force that engagement on that side, they rotate back over to mid. So I'd be really curious to see if they do end up pushing more and having potentially maybe a team fight in middle lane.
Right. So here we'll see the pick come down again.
Just sick.
I really want to commend Chillphil for his play during this turn. Not only this game, we saw him being the main initiator for his team.
That's right.
But
The blink right here.
with that being said, Chillphil played absolutely out of his mind this whole tournament.
Yeah.
If you go back, I highly recommend that you guys, I believe the Paragon Competitive League's official YouTube channel has the VODs for these games available. Highly recommend that you guys go and check those out if you guys have not already. Chillphil played, I mean, all these guys played fantastic, but Chillphil in particular played great. Here we see Jay Leo coming into the mid lane, looking for the pick onto Strafe. They don't end up getting it. It looks like Strafe blinks out. Lewis here gets the three-man crash bang boom there and ends up disengaging. That was sick. That was awesome.
That's just another I guess showing of how skilled he is, because obviously, you know, Jay Leo's got this purple buff. He's walking up. This is perfect, right? Like, this guy's gonna get caught out. It's over. We're gonna kill him. He blinks out, but he starts crash bang boom. And look, at the very, very edge of it, he stops Sevarog from walking forward, knocks all of them up, and then he's like, all right, later, dudes.
Yep. And
We'll do this again in another 60 seconds.
And
See you
he's
then.
out.
So yeah, I mean, and that's really good that they were able to escape that. But I think the important thing to know is that while they're not able to maybe get a kill, Reborn's doing one of the more important moves in mitigating the effectiveness of their prime.
Right.
So I think, you know, we'll maybe see like kind of a standard push here on left. You know, you get that prime buff. This is the inhib that's the lowest. This is our open inhibitor. This is the one we're going to go after. So we can see here, standard inhibitor engaged. Chillphil going up on there. Reborn looking for the engage here. Jaleo trying to go back for that knockback. Luis here able to land the stun on him. Jaleo having to use that knockback later. Gets Chillphil into the inhibitor. But we can see here them really using the fact that they have that prime buff and confidently gesturing towards the team and pushing ahead.
Absolutely.
So very intelligent and decisive play there, which I think
Definitely.
is what we've seen from Finesse almost all game, with the exception of some of the middle game teams, which did get a little muddied, but the consistency from the engagement. Look at that. I immediately blink, pull, two members are
So
there,
good.
pulled into the fight. He takes both of them out. Reflect is able to net a kill at the Reflect is getting to that point where he's getting really scary,
Right.
but
at this point, it's a
you know,
little bit too late, right? When he
That's
starts
right.
hitting that
Exactly.
really scary Sereth power spike. Looks like they're able to defend here, but as Mooney pointed out, the
if we go ahead and
shot
look at the
calling-
scoreboard, yeah, we
right,
can. It's a little more indicative of like where the power separation is.
Sure,
That's right.
Sure, absolutely. I think on top of that, though, the double ranged carry in a siege situation, along with Gadget,
Yeah.
having the thunk for the disengage and Grux for the all-in.
Yeah.
I think in a situation like this, it's honestly very rough for Reborn to deal with that. They have a ton of DPS that they can put down onto turrets and structures. Their siege potential is pretty awesome. They have the gadget gate to go down if they do need to disengage for whatever
right.
reason. They have the move speed boost from Louis Cyr. They have all the tools at their disposal, and they're just taking advantage of it. They end up translating that into the inhibitor pickup, and I believe shortly hereafter if we want to fast forward just
We
a
can start
little
them see
bit.
probably gesturing for their last pushes, I'd
Right,
imagine,
right,
because
definitely.
and it's at this
Right
point
around
it's at this
40.
point in the game where you
40.
start to understand this is my team composition. This is why we picked this team composition with the goal of having early game strength and transitioning that into late game objectives. And that's the important thing to conceptualize. You aren't transferring early game strength to the late game strength because you may not have that in the late game, whereas a hero like Sereth will. So something you have to be very cognizant of is how much objective power you have at that point. Because if you get to mid-game, say, and you have 30 kills on Revenant, you're like, oh, I don't understand why I'm winning the game. Maybe look at the tower count, and you might get a notification as to why that might have occurred.
Right.
Because that's always what I see. Like I'll see these cases, or like anecdotally, I'll see a lot of situations where like I'll see a Revenant very far ahead, and the team will be like, I don't know how we couldn't convert. We had a ton of kills. We had a really far ahead Revenant. We had a really far ahead, X early game hero. The important the reasoning behind early game picks in a competitive environment is that we will transfer that power either to other heroes on our team that are strong in the late game, or we will use that that early game strength to get the objectives to the point where the enemy team has to work that much harder to come back.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll see about 40 minutes in game time. We'll start seeing the ending of this game start to play out. We're going to see Team Finesse just posturing here, slowly pushing up their waves.
Cleaning up the river buffs, just making sure they are denying as much economy as possible and forcing Reborn to play on an as comfortable back leg as possible as well.
That's
We
right.
see Strafe with the green buff there. Super safe as it is. Tack on the green buff on top of that, and
Ooh, right there on
yeah,
timer.
Yep. That's one thing as well. Make sure you guys are keeping tabs on those objective timers when you guys secure them. Or even, okay, so here we go. We'll start seeing this last skirmish here. Suki ends up popping the stasis gem.
Not remembering he has a gadget on his team and not the enemy team.
Right.
I
think
he may have been expecting them to go for a harder engage there, alternatively. But I think at that point, at this point, stasis gem 45-second cooldown. You're really not hedging too much on that,
Right.
so I feel like better safe than sorry.
Right.
So I'm okay with that, but I'm gonna razz him a little bit.
Right, I did actually see the Orb Prime spell come out. The projectile that roots you was about to hit him, and I believe that's why he popped it there. But regardless, we see them, and they end up picking up a kill again onto J. Leo Grande. They're going for the hard initiate here. Chill Phil's up in the front where he's been all game, along with Louis Cyr. We're seeing them play some cleanup here, and it looks like Reborn is actually doing some work, picking up some kills here. We see Proficiency and Naz dueling it out over in the Prime Pit. Suki is... Oh, it's a beautiful
close.
cue.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So
there's a lot that
Yeah.
happens here. Let's just
And
take
I
this
believe
back.
this is the final team fight that leads into the ending of the game. So
That is correct.
we'll go ahead and highlight some of the key moments for this team fight in particular. So here we see Reborn posturing inside the pit. Looks like they start up Prime. NATO
They
has
do.
green buff, along with some lifesteal at this point.
I think
Phil-
this is the mistake. I think J. Leo stepped maybe a little too far forward.
trying to
Yeah.
zone, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could see that like his health started ticking from the thermal bond, but they just had so much damage.
Double stun there by Chill Phil coming down, and just
Another
wombo combo under-
3-man by Luis here.
Yeah, yep. With the gadget ult on top of it as well. Master Splinter ends up going down here.
I do think if Finesse didn't misplay this a little bit in the sense that they underrated Reflect strength.
Yes.
I think had they checked the scoreboard maybe before this fight, they would have seen that he has gotten to the almost on par with some of the other carries in the game. When Sereth is at that point, that's very dangerous, as you can see by Suki just dying after engaging
That
on the
was a
Sereth.
beautiful play. by the
Beautiful.
way.
Yeah.
Like, beautiful.
So
hearts.
yeah. So and that's one of those things you have to keep in mind. Like you can't just you got to be very cognizant of like where the other carry is in terms of like strength and what kind. Like Sereth definitely much stronger late game than she is in the early game. And when she pops that ultimate, you're gonna be weakened in addition to her dealing
Right,
more
absolutely.
damage.
And that's actually like a really good point is Reflect makes a good point to ult and then just try and like tag people.
Yeah.
Just put that damage reduction on and just hurt as many people as possible. And to your point, Mooney, I think Reborn did not respect Finesse's damage. I think they should have maybe forced a fight, but have fully been like, hey, there's a potential we could definitely lose this fight, so we need to be smart about this. They forced it a little too hard, and I think that was what cost them in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, really what ends up happening is, again, like you pointed out, J. Leo steps up. He tries to get some pressure down, keep them out of the pit there. He still had Colossal Blow at that point. Figured that he was probably safe, but the thunk following the Grux pull and double carries, that's a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage.
Here we see Reflect hold on to that Q for the Obliterate and ends up getting the crit and
So
trading
good.
with Suki there. That was
So
absolutely
good. The little hearts.
Something that we didn't highlight there, he actually steps outside of the fog wall or
And then
inside of the fog wall and
then
backs
steps
out,
back out. Yep.
to kind of grant him that just a second of time there. The Scar still ends up going down, but he sees an opportunity to go in and go for the trade. That was awesome.
That was a great
That
play.
was awesome.
That was a great play.
And this ultimately leads to the end of the game. Here we'll
We
see.
we can let that run through as we talk through some of the high level stuff
Sure,
from the
sure,
game.
sure.
So let's just we Finesse obviously been playing the whole game very aggressively in the strat and really pushing forward with that early game aggression strategy. Chill Phil being the biggest tip on that spearhead, so to speak. In the sense that he was driving a lot of those early game engagements, using that early game strength of Grux in combination with the Revenant and smart rotations from his team to be able to net CP, both a hero level advantage and eventually a CP advantage through their control of the Raptor pitch. So I think Finesse's awesome objective control, aggressive play, and ability to utilize a lot of these utilize these actives in these team fights in an impactful and meaningful way. Like Louis Cyr with the Stasis Gem and a lot of those early game active cards allowed them the strength to win those team fights, and I think that ultimately led to them ramping up their strength to be able to almost brute force finish the game on that inhibitor.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Just
I mean,
great play.
that was just an all around. That was a fantastic game. If you want to pull up the scoreboard there, and we'll show the end
Final
stat
stat
lines.
lines.
Yeah, so it looks like 23 kills over to the side of Team Finesse, 17 kills over to Reborn.
And you can still see very close game, and that's the thing with these competitive matches. Like a single needle hair could turn one way or the other, and immediately it's in the other direction. Is like that team fight at Prime. Maybe it goes the right way. Nados can reflect both alive after that fight, and they get a great push down middle lane.
Right.
And maybe the match is extended for a little bit longer. But it's those subtle things of execution and the micro play that happens within the team fight that's so vital to. We are already so far behind. The jump that we have to make is so big that if we don't make that, like it's just going to be that much harder to step back up that ladder. But all of those steps down the ladder didn't happen in 1 minute. It happened over 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the last things to point out is when you see play of this level, a lot of times this ultimately comes down to, because all these guys are mechanically skilled, right? They don't miss skill shots, very rarely miss CS, very rarely miss basic attacks, very rarely miss skill shots. They're obviously very talented players. A lot of times we'll see this come down to who coordinates better, who is making those decisive shot calls, who's sticking with those calls, seeing them through, and executing better. And I think in this situation, honestly, Team Reborn is one of the best team fighting teams in the game, in my opinion. Absolutely. I mean, leading up to our exhibition tournament coming up soon, I think that they are absolute contender. They're very, very scary. We're going to see them participating in the North American qualifiers coming up here in just a couple weeks.
That's right.
Yeah, a lot of times this just comes down to execution, and I think Team Finesse executed a lot better than Reborn did in this situation. You saw them more decisive with their calls, saw a little bit of indecisiveness on the side of Team Reborn, going in when maybe they shouldn't have. Somebody got chunked too hard, starting a fight off on the back foot, still barely losing out on these team fights, but had that coordination in there, very easily could have swung the other way. And I can't put emphasis on that enough. That's part of the reason why we really wanted to cast this match, because it could have gone either way. There's a lot to take from it. Could have easily been Reborn. This time,
but no, I mean, a great game by both teams, and I think that there's definitely a lot to learn there. Like Ed said, go ahead and check out. I believe the VODs are up on YouTube.
Yep.
Check out the PCL number 8, I believe, and it's Team Finesse versus Team Reborn. Zeke, do you have any final notes about the game?
I mean, just crazy play. I mean, to Ed's point, everything comes down to these just super minute. Did I attack 1 second too late? You know?
Yeah, the question in the back of your head.
The question, yeah. And I mean, honestly, both teams are just fantastic. It's hard to even say where things go wrong. Like, even though things are wrong, it's not that they're wrong. It's just someone was a little quicker. Someone someone didn't back down when you expect them to back down, right? And I think that just shows it's really cool to see this level of play and this level of precision.
Well, I mean, and a great place that's going to be a great place to check out this kind of play. We actually have some awesome events. We have some awesome stuff coming up that you guys should be able to check out for some high-level play.
Oh, man.
Ed, if you want to take us through some of that.
Sure. So you guys probably know at this point, we did announce our first exhibition tournament, officially sanctioned by Epic. Super, super excited for that. If this is any indication of what gameplay is going to look like, I am super excited for what's to come.
I'm going to lose my voice, man.
Speaking of which, as Mooney pointed out, we actually have the Western European qualifiers that are going to be held tomorrow at 7 a.m. EST. We are going to be hosting the official channel that's going to be broadcasting via the Paragon channel. So you guys can go ahead and head over to ours, and it'll be automatically hosted. You guys will be directed there. But again, that will be the Western European qualifiers. That is going to happen at 7 a.m. EST, and it is going to be Group A followed by Group B the following day. There should be some awesome matches. If you guys care at all about competitive play, you guys should absolutely take a look. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of great games there, a ton of action, and
I believe we also in the following week have the Eastern European qualifiers.
Yep.
So those will be going on. We'll give you more information, obviously, the closer we get to that, but on the horizon. So a lot of competitive stuff, but
and then we have North America.
Yeah.
Right after that.
It's just like a train. It just keeps coming.
I would not be surprised if we see a rematch.
That would be hype for sure.
Yeah,
so I'm very excited, honestly, for the innovation and stuff that happens after this, because after this match, just really seeing the ways the team were able to utilize the 40 changes and turn around so quickly was very cool.
Right.
So definitely looking forward to more of these, because we will be able to see a lot of those trends as we descend more into these qualifiers. But Ed, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining us, all of us
Absolutely.
on here. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Seek, you as well. Everybody.
You guys are all beautiful.
All of you
All
are beautiful. So thanks for stopping by the Community Learning Cast. We're gonna try to do these more regularly on Fridays. So it'll give you
Our
some
Twitter
some-
handle should be
yeah,
below.
Twitter handles below. Definitely follow the @Paragon Twitter for all things official that are coming out of there. We'll let you guys know, keep you guys up to date. But
Give us
until
feedback.
yeah,
Give us
and give us
feedback on
feedback.
this
Let
learning
us know,
path,
like
but-
if you guys think, hey, I want to focus on more stuff, or like, hey, could you break down some of the more like basic, some lanes hitting, last hitting, like nothing is too simple, complex. Like we'll talk about anything.
Yeah.
Give us feedback. Let us know. And honestly, great game, great day, and until next time, guys.
Till next time.